Hey folks, welcome back. This is Joel, and it's been some time since I made a couple of these tech videos, so I thought I'll pick up a quick lab, to kind of revise some of our network security concepts, right? So in this lab, what we'll be doing is we'll be kind of like mashing up ASA, right? The ISE, and we'll also do some of the very interesting ASA technologies like security context, active-active failover, and from the ISE side, we'll also do Dot1x and Mab, right? So this is a lab which I picked up from the internet, thanks to the people who created it, probably the guys at Eve, right? And I'm not going to use the whole lab for this exercise. I'm just going to use the ones which are highlighted, right? Which the blue ones over here, these devices, and obviously I have my ISE over here and my management PC, right? So that being said, I think we are good to go. So I've already done some of the configurations on these devices, so I'm not going to repeat those. The main objective of this lab is to kind of like double click on ICE, Dot1x and Mab, but there are few things regarding ASAs which I've already done, but I'll be going through it. I'll skim through it and explain what I've done, right? So to set the context, let me just quickly probably take a for the rest of the sessions. I'm going to take this, put it down on my uh, whiteboard, and let's start with the discussion, right? So I think that's visible. Awesome. So this is the physical topology right on the left, and what I intend to do today is basically, let me start by drawing the logical topology, right? Awesome. So I have my ASA over here, right? So let's say we have this ASA, and we call this as the ASA1, and we also have the other ASA, which is ASA2 over here. So what we are going to do is we are going to do security context. What is security context? In simple layman terms, it's breaking the ASA into two pieces, right? So we're going to break the ASA into two, which means I'm going to use this ASA piece of the ASA for the sales department, let's say the sales, right, over here, and the other one is obviously going to be used for my let's say another department, which is finance, right? So I'm kind of like virtually dividing or segmenting the ASA, right? So security context is a feature in ASA which allows you to do that. Awesome. Now that being said, I'm not going to obviously do it manually on both the ASAs. I'm going to do obviously the configuration on ASA1, and then I'm going to leverage what we have, something called as a active kind of a configuration, right? Wherein so active is kind of like a redundancy or reliability, high availability configuration, to be more specific. In an active setup, so what you're doing is, let me write it as well. So right, so we're doing active. So in an active setup, what we intend to do is we are gonna make this guy the ASA1 to be the active ASA for one of the context, which is sales, and we are gonna make the we are going to make the finance, right, to be the active for the other context, right? The names doesn't matter, but you understand the idea. In a normal active standby kind of configuration, what would happen is that we would kind of like have one ASA always working, whereas the other ASA would be idle. But in this kind of a configuration, we are going to have both the guys working, right? And the rest of the stuff is pretty much straightforward, right? So we have the sales guy connected to on the inside, say, to R6, right? And on the outside, you probably have R5, right? That's good. And the other one, the finance, is connected to R8, right? And on the outside, you have R7. Make sense? So that's basically the configuration which we have. Um, I think that's pretty much it. I'm not very sure if I've used, I have a feeling the left one is the finance and the right one is the sales. But we'll figure that out later as we see through the configurations. But this is what we are, getting at, right? The idea is to kind of do such a configuration so that, when you're on R6, right, you should be able to access R5, and the traffic will obviously be going through the sales context. And, when you're on R8, you should be able to talk to R7, and traffic will be going to the finance context. And obviously the sales will be active on ASA1 and the finance will be active on ASA2. So this is basically the security context related configuration. I will tell you where does the Mab and Dot1x come into picture, but before that, let's just um, double click on this part because I've already done this configuration. Let me first show you the configuration and then also show you the demo piece as well, right? So that said, let's go back to my, I think I have the configurations here. Already set that up, which means, yeah, we are good here, right? So, okay, so before that, let me also like clarify another important piece here. Like I said, this is the logical topology and this is the physical topology, right? So to convert from here to here, obviously you have to do a lot of configurations on the switch, and that's what we have done. Now, before we get into the configuration, let me just clarify one thing. So what we have done is, you can see that you have, let me use a different color, you have three interfaces going between the ASA and switch 3. Similarly, between ASA 2 and switch 4. So to make it easier, what I've done is I've taken two of these interfaces and I've bundled them, right? Or I've done port channel, right? So this is the port channel, which we have done here, right, between these two interfaces. And this port channel will be used for both my purposes. Will be used as my inside interface, as well as my outside interface for my ASA, right? So that's what we have done. Obviously, how would you break a port channel to serve these purposes? Yes, the answer is correct. Sub interfaces. So we have used sub interfaces to cater to all the interfaces of ASA. And obviously, you would have observed there is one more interface here, right? There is one more interface here. Let me highlight in a different color. Let's say the green color. There is one more interface here going between these two guys. That is Ethernet, I believe 1/2, and that interface is basically your management interface, right? That's how we have configured, right? That's good. Let's also talk about the VLANs, right? VLANs are very important. So in my case, what I have done is I'm using, let's use a different color. Right? So we are using VLAN 10 over here, right? For the outside of the sales context. We are using VLAN 20 over here for the outside of the finance context, and VLAN 30 over here, and similarly VLAN 40 over here, right? So that's basically with respect to the VLAN. So that's how the configuration has been set, right? So when this completely works, what we should be able to do is from R6, we should be able to, let's say, telnet or do some HTTP, access to R5, and similarly, we should be able to do the stuff on R8 to R7, right? So let's look into the configurations. Now that we know a basic context, we'll be able to look into configuration. So this is the configurations which I've already done. I'm going to quickly skim through it because I don't want to waste time talking a lot about configurations. So this is the configurations on switch 3. You can see the VLANs are defined here, right? 10, 20, 30, 40. 150 is the management VLAN, and 201 and 202 are defined mainly because we want the ASS. These are the VLANs which are on the ASS. Actually, not needed to be more specific, but I think I've kept it for some future development, right? These are basically the interfaces, the the heartbeat or the keep alive interfaces between the ASS, right? You can see the SVI 150 SVI because it's my management. What you will next see is again there is one interface which is Ethernet 1/2, which is the management, which is connecting to the management interface of the ASA. So we have put that as well in 150. And the port channeling is here, right? I talked about the port channeling here. If you remember, I talked about the port channeling on the ASA side, but obviously you have to do the port channeling on the switch side as well. So that's being done. Port channel, you can see this is a port channel configuration allowing all the VLANs. And the next is basically, this is basically the outside interface, or this is the router which you saw, right? R5, and this is R6. So I put them in the respective VLANs, VLAN 10 and VLAN 30, right? If you go back to the diagram, you'll see Ethernet 0/3 and 0/2 are in respective VLANs, which is 10 and 30, right? So that's basically that configuration. Now for R4, switch 4 as well, the configuration remains the same, right? Very much similar to it, because if you look at the topology, it's very symmetrical, right? Switch 3 and switch 4, the configuration remains same, only the VLANs will change. R7 and R8, which are connected to switch, will be in VLAN 20 and 40 instead of 10 and 30, right? So that's the only difference. And I believe just to make my topology work, I've also kind of like put this Ethernet 0/0 in in VLAN 150 because that is connecting to the management cloud of the Eve, right? Otherwise, there won't be connectivity at all, right? So that's done. So that's the configuration on my switch 3 and switch 4, right? This is, let me skim through switch 4 so that you can maybe, if you want, you can pause the screen and go through it. So this is switch 4. Let me scroll down a bit. So this is Ethernet 0, 2/0, 2/1, and the last part is, your and you also have a trunk interface between both the switches, right? Because you might have some kind of VLANs flowing around, so you would want to have a trunk. Great. So we're good with switches, guys. Moving on, we will see the ASAs, right? ASA, like I said, they are configured in a what do you say, active fashion. So starting with, we have that port channel, which I started telling you guys about. So we have the port channel, which is good. Followed by, what do we have next? We have the interfaces. So Ethernet 2 is the management interface, whereas Ethernet 3 is the failover interface, right? Use it for failover. Since I have just one failover interface, I broke it into two by using sub interfaces 201 and 202, right? So these are the VLANs I was talking about earlier on the switch. And you can see how I've broken one single port channel to serve all my purposes for all the VLANs, right? So a couple of these port channel interfaces will be serving as the inside interface for the ASA, and a couple of other will be serving as the outside interface. This is the failover configuration because ASA1 is my primary. Then you have to, for LAN and for state, right? Link, LAN and link. So I'm using both of the interfaces over here. You need to put in the IP addresses, right? So that both the primary and standby can communicate. Then the most important part of the active-active configuration is making sure that you create failover groups and make the ASA1 as primary for one group and obviously make ASA1 as secondary for the other group, so that obviously ASA2 becomes the primary for group 2. So both of them can kind of like load share, right? Mark my words, I'm using load share and not load balance, because load balances you want to do, then you have to probably look into technologies like clustering, right? Okay, so next, this is where you define the context, security context. I've created an admin context after and allocated the interface Ethernet 2. I've created sales context, allocated interface, right, port channel .20 and 40, right? Because I think now that I look at it, I think I probably messed up with my names earlier. So sales is basically the 20 and 40. Finance is 10 and 30. So if you go back to my diagram here, am I right or am I wrong? Sales is 20 and 40. So I can see, I think I made a small mistake here. The red one is supposed to be finance, and so let me just get that out of the way right now, because I don't want you guys to get a wrong understanding. So let me just clear this off. Let me just clear this off. This one and this one. Good. Let me just write that down again, right? So the red one is my finance, right over here as well. Is my finance, and the blue one is going to be my sales on the other side as well, right? Doesn't matter, the names are not important. I think just got a little confused around the names, but anyway, the technology or the logic still remains the same, right? You have the finance kind of a context for which ASA1 will be the primary. The ASA1 will be the primary, whereas ASA2 will be the primary for or will be active for the sales context, right? That's it, right? So having said that, let's move down here. So you can see the admin context, the sales context, and the finance context. Just observe this. I've made the sales context to join the group of, the failover group 1, and I've made the finance context kind of like join the failover group 2, right? Is that in line with my discussion? Let me just verify. So we've got sales for 20 and 40. We have got sales for 20 and 40, and okay. So the sales is going to be active on the group of 1, which is basically the primary. Okay, ASA1, ASA2. So I believe this is how it's going to be. So let me just use a different color probably, otherwise it's going to be confusing. Let me use a different color for highlighting which is going to be primary. So The one which is going to be primary is actually sales over here, and the finance over here, right? Just forget the earlier markings. This is what is going to be, right? So that's going to be ASA1 is going to be active for sales, and ASA2 is going to be active for finance. Okay, awesome. So does it actually matter which one becomes active for which? The whole idea is that one of them is active for one of the contexts. That way both of them will be forwarding, right? Awesome. So coming back, let's see the rest of the configurations. It's all about changing to the admin context and putting in the IP addresses, right? So I've used 115 and 116. Look at my subnet. My management subnet is always 198.18.18. My sales context has the IP addresses, which is 10, 100, 40.1 and 40.2, right? This is very much in line with what we discussed. So this is my sales. So you can see 40 over here, 40.1 and 40.2. That is on the inside interface. On the outside interface, you should have 20, right? That VLAN 20. Is that correct? Yes, the VLAN 20 is over here. Similarly, on the other side, you're going to have 30 and 40. Sorry, 30, 10 and 30, right? That's what you have. And we also put a default route because I've not used any kind of routing. So I've used some default route from the ASA. So all the traffic on the ASA will be directed towards the outside. And this is basically the bootstrap config going on ASA2. You don't have to do any configurations on ASA2 because we are in the active failover concept. So you just need to do bootstrap config, which is basically copy pasting almost everything from the ASA1, just changing this term from primary to secondary, and the rest the ASS will take care, right? So when both the ASS comes up, they're going to sync with each other, right? They're going to decide who is primary and who is secondary. And once that is decided, the primary, which is ASA1, will send all the configuration, which we have done on that to ASA2, right? Once both the configurations are synced, they will then start assuming the roles, which is what? ASA1 being the active for the sales context and ASA2 being active for the finance context. Let's quickly verify that. Is that what is happening? So I'm on ASA1 here. Let's go to change to context. Let's go to sales first, right? So on the sales, let me show interface IP brief. You can see both the 4-channel interfaces are up, right? Let me just clear the screen a bit because I think not seeing. Okay. Now let's do show failover, right? Show failover, probably state, or maybe that should be good. Show failover. Okay. So you can see show failover for the sales context. You can see the ASA1 is active, right? Whereas the peer, which is ASA2, is standby. Now let's do the same thing for the other context. Change to context finance. And here, if you do show interface IP brief, you will basically see that both the 4 channels are up. And if you do something like show failover, right, you're going to see that for the finance context, the ASA1 is standby, whereas the ASA2 is active. That's it. That's basically what you wanted to see here, right? So all of that is up, which means now we can just quickly test, right? What do you mean by test? I should be able to talk between R6 and R5. Does that work? Let's go to R6. Let's clear this. Let's see. Let's enable and go to and do a telnet. I've enabled telnet on R5, so this should work. So I'm going to do 10.100.10.5. So this is R5, right? There you go. I'm able to access, right? Remember, you will not be able to do ping because it's ASA, and ASA by default don't expect ICMP, so that's why I'm doing telnet. But obviously, you can enable ICMP and then you'll be able to test that as well. Let's do the other side as well, which is what is enable. Yep. So on my R8, right? We're on R8. So on my R8, I should be able to talk to R7. Let's check if that works. Give me a second. Okay, that's good. So I'm on R8. Okay, so let's do a telnet again. Telnet 10.100. 20.7 is my R7, and there you go. That works. I'm inside R7 now. Okay. So we have verified the functioning of our security context and the failover concept, right? So we are good with that. Next, what we'll do is, I think my security chat is getting hung up a little. Give me a minute. Just fix this. Okay, I think it should come up. Okay, that's good. So next, what are we gonna do next? Let's go back to our topology. So we have done the security context and we have figured out it's working. So the next part is the most important part, which is the ISE part, right? So what we are trying to do is, let me go back to my whiteboard and try to explain. So what we are trying to do is we are going to now introduce two of these guys, right? We are going to introduce the Mab PC and the Dot1x PC, right? So we're going to introduce the Mab PC and the switch will authenticate, right? The switch will authenticate. So switch is going to use what? Our amazing ISE, right? So switch is going to use the ISE and authenticate this Mab or the Dot1x PC. And once it authenticates, it will obviously assign, the ISE will assign what? VLAN, the corresponding VLAN, right? For Mab, it is going to assign VLAN 30. For Dot1x, it is going to assign VLAN 40, because that is basically what you have here, right? 30 and 40, right? So Mab is going to be assigned VLAN 30 so that it can now be part of the finance group, all right? The finance context. Dot1x will be assigned 40 so that it can be part of the sales context, right? So once this is done, right, your Mab will be, your PCs will be able to get IP addresses, because we will be setting up DHCP servers on switch 3 and switch 4. So we'll be able to get the IP addresses, and then we'll be able to kind of browse what. So basically what happens is, let me put in a color here, right? So when the finance PC comes here, so it's going to be over here. This is going to be a Mab PC. So once it gets connected here, from the Mab PC, you'll be able to talk to R5, right? Similarly, you're going to have your sales PC, which comes over here, right? So your sales PC will be here, and it comes in via Dot1x, right? So once this happens, once it gets authenticated successfully, from the Dot1x PC, you'll be able to ping R7, right? So that's the whole task which we're trying to do. So to do that, first we have to go and configure our switches, switch 3 and switch 4. Okay, so let's go to that. I already have the configuration, so I'm just going to obviously put it down here, but I'm going to explain every piece of it. So hold on to that. So let's do the Dot1x first, which is my switch 4, right, if I'm not wrong. So going to the switch 4, I should have the config saved somewhere. Give me a minute to pick it up. Yep, found it. Pretty simple, straightforward configurations. You would have seen this a lot of times. Okay, give me a second. Okay, I'm just trying to my system is a bit cranky today. Going back to the switch configurations, right, which are talking about the Dot1x configuration. So let me just go through it quickly. So this is the DHCP configuration, because we want the switch to issue DHCP IP address because we are talking about which context again? In the sales context, right? So Dot1x is serving the sales context. If you look at this diagram, we are adding the Dot1x PC, and when the switch should basically assign IP address in the VLAN 40 space. So that's why we have the VLAN 40 providing you the DHCP addresses. The default router is going to be obviously the ASA, right? The inside interface of the ASA, that's the IP address of that. And you're also excluding some of the addresses which you don't want to be issued. And you also have a SVI for that particular VLAN 40, which is the inside of the sales interface, right? The AAA new model, just putting in no authentication on the console interface in case we get locked out of the device. We'll still have console access. Let's say your TechAx goes down, but because of this configuration, we'll still have the console configuration, right? That's your TechAx or radius course. In our case, radius, right? Yeah. Now radius server, very simple again, putting in the IP address of the radius server, which is 102, our ISE server, defining the ports. Moving ahead, we have the, I've created a group called as ISE group, so that later I can kind of like define my AAA authentication, authorization, and accounting here, right? For that particular group. This group is again linked back to the ISE server over here, right? This is the connection between so the group is just a logical grouping of the ISE servers, right? Now we also need to define the radius attributes. These are the attributes which are sent to the radius server when authentication request comes in. The 6825 is very important for all your authentication, authorization, and accounting. Also sending in a couple of very specific vendor specific attributes here. IP device tracking is useful if you want to do something like downloadable ACLs, right? I'll show you how to do that on ISE. So it's going to be very useful for that. So IP device tracking literally replaces the, source address of the ACL with the IP address of the client which got authenticated, right? And this is how you globally enable Dot1x. Go down to the interface where the PC is going to be connected, make it, more access. Then you also have, I'm using multi-authentication in case in future you want to probably add an IP phone and have like multiple devices connecting to it. Then we have defined the order, which is Dot1x and Mab. Priority is Dot1x and Mab. Very important, the port control auto. This is reread. If without this, the authentication request will not be sent. And the rest is pretty simple. We are making it port fast, shutting it down, and no shutdown, right? So let me quickly shut it down for now and copy all of this configuration where onto my switch 4. So switch 4 is pretty much here. Let's go down here. Let's clear the screen. Enable. Go to conf mode T. Paste here. Looks good. So that's what we have on my switch 4 now. While we are at it, I think let's also go and do the switch 3 as well, right? The Mab configuration. Let me just warn you though, doing Mab on a virtual environment is a little difficult. So most of the time we don't get the output as we expect, but I could still show you that it really gets authenticated. But sometimes because it's all virtual environments, right? What we are playing with, they don't play well sometimes. So pretty much the similar configurations with the Mab as well. We're gonna put in the DHCP. The VLAN is 30 though here. That's only difference because we want, this is for the finance context, right? And we want the Mab PC to be aligned to VLAN 30 when it gets authenticated. So then we have the AAA model. The ISE configuration remains the same. All of this is same as the previous Dot1x, right? Actually, almost everything is same. I think I've just changed the order over here between Dot1x and Mab because I really want the switch to start, start the authentication with Mab directly instead of like, checking the Dot1x first. Also, you have enabled Mab under that interface, right? That's it, guys. That's literally what we have to do. So let me just copy this and put it on switch 3. I'm gonna put this on switch 3 now. Let me clear this. Let's go and enable. Run this. Okay, makes sense. I've shut down both the ports for now. Now we'll go and configure the last piece of our lab, which is the ISE. Now coming to the ISE, the first thing I would do is coming to, let's add the devices, right? Let's add the devices. Before we even do this, let's check if we have connectivity from our switches to the ISE, right? So let's do a ping from 10, 100, sorry, it's not 10, 198, right? That's my management space. So it's 198.18.18.102. There you go, that works. So from switch 3 you have the connectivity. Let's see the same thing on switch 4. And there you go, that also works. Awesome. So now we can peacefully go into the configuration on my ISE. So let's start by putting the switch 3. So that's switch 3 and the address is 198.18.18.113, right? That's the management IP. And we are going to just go and put a shared secret which we had configured on the radius server, which is the radius configuration on the switch. was Cisco. I think we directly use Cisco over there. That's it. We're going to hit the submit. We're going to add the other one as well, which is switch 4. And for that, it's going to be 198.18.18.114. And similarly, we're going to add the radius part. We're going to put in Cisco over here. And I think we should be good. Let's go and hit the submit. So we've got that done. Next is let's go and add identity groups. Right, let's go and create a user identity group called as Dot1x. For Mab, we will not create it, not needed. So we'll create that. We'll go to identities and kind of like add the user identity for Dot1x, which is the username. Probably let's do a very simple, as I said, Cisco, and the password is also going to be Cisco. I think that should take care of it. Let's scroll down and let's select the group over here, which I created just now, which is going to be what? Should be Dot1x, right? Let's create Dot1x and submit. Login passwords do not match. Okay, I think okay, I did not enter the password again, so now I've done that, so I think it should be good. Awesome. Moving on, for the identities, because we have Mab here, what we have to do is network. Give me a minute. So we go down to identities. Okay, not that. We go to network identities. So we go down to network identities. You see the endpoints. Since I've done this lab before, I have tested this. I've already added the IP address of my Mab PC. But if you haven't, you can add it over here, right? So this is, you just click on the plus button and add it, right? How do you get the IP address of the Mab PC? It's pretty straightforward. I could show you that. So you go down to Mab, you just click on your command prompt, you do ipconfig/all, right? Hit that, and you will basically get the MAC address. You should get the MAC address over here, right? So you can see 50.00.23 and 00, right? So that's going to be the MAC. Awesome. So I've already done that. So let's continue doing the management configurations. We have done this piece. Moving on, let's go to the results part. In the results, let's go to authorization profiles. Let's create 2 profiles here. One is going to be for my Dot1x, and we're going to allow the DACL, which is permit any, and the VLAN is going to be for what? For Dot1x, it's going to be VLAN 40, right? This is for my sales context, and I want my Dot1x PC to be assigned VLAN 40. So that's good. Let's hit the submit. Let's also create another one, which is my Mab. And in this case also, I'm going to permit all traffic. We can obviously play around and do some custom configurations. I'm going to stick to the basic. And I want my finance context PC, which is the Mab PC, to be assigned VLAN 30. And I'm going to hit the submit. Done with that, let me also show you what happens from an authentication point of view, because I think that configuration should come by default. As I said, we have the configurations set by default over here, which is good. So for Mab, you can see the wired Mab. You also have the default network access and the internal endpoints, right? For Dot1x also, it's been set. If this is not set, you can set it as well over here. Right, so that's the authentication policies. Now the last part is when we put everything together, right? So we gotta go and put everything together, which means let's create a new authorization policy, which is, let's do Dot1x first. Dot1x is good. And the identity groups which we created, right? The Dot1x group. So it's going to select that here. User groups, Dot1x, right? So we are basically saying, hey, if there is any request coming in from the devices, from the users who are part of the Dot1x group, right? Along with some condition. What is the condition? We're going to say wired wired.1x, right? It's basically wired.1x. We're gonna select that, making it more and more easy for ISE to figure out. You should give ISE as much as information as possible to make the authentication easier. And here we're gonna say the radius request is gonna come from switch 4. And what is switch 4? 198.18.18.114, right? That's it. And on the other side, we're going to give the authorization profile, which we created just now, which is Dot1x, right? Awesome. So we are done with that. Let's go and create another rule at the top, so that rule above. Let's go and do that. So when we do this, we are basically doing it for Mab. So here we are going to directly select a profiled endpoint because we are doing Mab, right? So for Mab, we can already use a profiled endpoint like a workstation, because you see what I'm authenticating is a workstation at the end of the day. So ISE is smart enough to figure it out, and it will profile it accordingly. Now that said, let's also go and put in the compound condition, which is wired Mab, just like wired.1x, we're doing wired Mab. And let's add the TLV, which is what? Which is going to be my NAS, right? IP address. We're basically saying ISE that, hey, the request is basically going to come from switch 3. So you put in NAS over there, and it's going to search for NAS. And okay, there you go. It's searched. I'm going to select that. It's a bit slow. We're going to do 198.18.18 and 113, because that's switch 3. So that's it. That's good. And the last part is I'm going to assign this guy the authorization results, which we configured earlier, which is your Mab, right? You can do all of the stuff with SGT and all of that, but just I'm just giving it very simple in this case, in this lab. So that's it, guys. That's literally what you had to do on ISE. Now let's go to the logs section, so that when the interfaces come up, you'll actually get to see the logs, right? So before that, let's go to the PCs. This is my Mab PC. Let's do Dot1x first. Love Dot1x. So okay, my taskbar is not visible, so let me just go and the taskbar is here. Let me just get the taskbar on the right side. Okay, that's good. Now using that, I could actually go down to my the network settings, right? So I think I'd already configured this before, but let me show you still how you do it. So you go to the IPv4 tab over here, and you basically make it DHCP based IP addressing, and go down to authentication, enable Dot1x. Basically in the settings, you basically go and remove the validation over here, go to configuration, remove the checkbox over here. That's good. The rest of the config looks good. In the additional settings, this is where you need to kind of, I'm going to replace it again just for your this thing, so that you get a reference. So you're going to put in the IP, you're going to put in the password, username and password, right? That's good. Let's go and hit the OK, and this is closed, right? Close. It's trying to authenticate, but it will not work because my interface is shut down, if you remember. So I'm going to go and unshut it on my switch port. No shut. But before doing a no shut, let me also enable debugs. I want to see how the, so I've enabled the radius debug. Now I'm going to do no shut, right? So just so that it goes and re-authenticates, let me enable it once again, disable and enable it, or kind of like toggle this. So when you do that, you can see the radius request going in and the radius information coming in, right? Now it should have gotten authenticated. We could check that out by doing show auth sessions. See, there you see we have the Dot1x working beautifully, and we can also drill down more into this show auth session interface Ethernet 1/3, and you do details, right? When you do that, you can see more information about the authorization. So you can see the VLAN group appearing. So VLAN 40 was assigned to this particular PC. Now let's go to the PC and check as well. So we are on the PC. We could do two things. Let's go to, sorry, not here. Let's go to, hope we can do that. Do we have putty on this? Yep, we have putty. So from putty, we should be able to connect to, let me just remove this. It's not visible. Right, so from the putty, we should be actually able to connect to where? To the other side, which is R7, right? Because we are on the sales. 10.120.7 is my R7. So I'm gonna telnet, right? And let's see if this opens up. Yes, see, you can see it's opened up and it gave me access as well. Right, we are inside R7. Let's also see from a browser, we'll be able to access. Opening up the browser. So ideally, you should go on the browser and just hit the IP address, which is 10. So give it a minute. It's all running on VM, so it's a bit slow sometimes. So 10.100.20.7 should work, right? That's literally my R7. So when I hit that, you can see my username password being asked, right, for that particular HTTP server. And there you go. We have the HTTP access as well from my Dot1x PC, right? That's literally, and we can also see if my Dot1x PC got assigned an IP address because of the DHCP. So IP config, right? Hit that, you see 10.100.40.4 got assigned, right? So we have verified Dot1x. Let's quickly check if your Mab works, right? So let me go down to this place, this interface, enable. So this one, like I said, it's very difficult to get it working in a working environment. So if you're lucky, you might get to see it. Sometimes toggling it multiple times kind of fixes the issue. But nevertheless, let me hit the no shut over here and go down to my Mab PC, which is okay. Meanwhile, you can also see the logs here. You can see the logs, right? The Dot1x logs from ISE. Let's go to the other PC which I was talking about, which is the Mab. So we are on Mab right now. And let's go to the interface, or let's go to the network adapter, right? Let's try to disable this and enable it, right? We don't have to enable Dot1x on this, like I said, because it's not needed. But like I said, right, only once in a while, once in a blue moon it works, because getting this to work is like very difficult because it's a virtual environment, right? And my bad, I had not enabled the debugs as well. So let's do debug radius. My bad. Okay. So did it already get authenticated? Show auth sessions. Nope, nothing yet. So this is little tricky to get it to work. So there are some tricks which I sometimes follow. So what I could do is maybe this is what I do sometimes, and sometimes it works. Because God knows why. I go to authentication and I enable Dot1x, right? Save this, and it will try to authenticate, I guess. Let's see. You can see the logs coming in, right? So the request was at least sent, and you can see if I do show auth sessions, you can see here it has authenticated, right? Using Mab, right? So this will basically verify that yes, Mab works, but because it's a virtual environment, it's very hard to kind of like get it authenticated over here. Probably you can try it, just toggle this interface multiple times, and if you get lucky, you might be able to see the output, right? So that being said, we have kind of like done what we set out to do, right? We have verified a lot of things. We started with what did we do? Let's just do recap. Let me just write down whatever we did. We okay. So we checked out security context, right? So Okay, what did we do first? Yeah, I think we did security context, right? So yeah, so we did security context on my ASA. Then we did the active kind of a failover, right? So that was the pre stuff. And in this lab, what we actually ended up doing is we did Dot1x. We verified this as well, and we did Mab as well. And both of these we did using the ISE, right? Configuration on the ISE, right? So that's it, guys. Hope you guys liked it, and yeah, please feel free to kind of use this lab to obviously try out different topologies and technologies as well, right? So thanks for watching.